Citizen Wolf. Welcome to another day here at the SSL.
It should be an exciting one, Tasus. We've got actually a ton of Protoss players playing today. We've got one in every match and 2 PvPs coming at you guys as well. So it should be an exciting day, especially if you're a Protoss fan.
We've seen the Adept use a good amount. It is a very strong unit. If you missed yesterday's games at the GSL, TY really teaching us how to actually approach that unit and handle it quite well. But I think we're probably still going to see a good amount of that here today.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of Adept usage. It's currently, like, most pros are considering it to be quite strong, especially in Korea. Some are even joking that it's insanely strong, that it's way broken, and needs to be fixed. You know, it's a unit that gives you a lot of utility. It's also a good unit to have in your army composition. You can scout with it, you can harass with it, you can put it in a warp prism. It's just an all-around powerful unit, and we're going to be seeing a lot of that today in all matchups.
We've got a lot of great players playing here today, but remember, you know, with Legacy of the Void being as different as it is right now, some of the favorites here from Heart of the Swarm might not have that same level of success. We already saw this happen once with the Wings of Liberty to the Heart of the Swarm switch. It could very well happen again here. Yeah. Now that we're in Legacy of the Void.
Absolutely. Now, if you guys missed it last week, we talked about this a little bit. The format has been changed. All the players that have lost already will actually have a second chance in this losers bracket.
The people have spoken.
Yes.
And Spo has heard you. And so we are going to have, I think, what's going to be even a better tournament that we normally have. This is your classic bracketed tournament, the kind of format that would be that you and I would have played in back when we were younger, like in high school or early college, for when we were going. Some tournaments, you know, going to more of a round robin format, but this is fun. We got these great players, and it's just a classic format, duking it out. And pretty soon here, as the months pass, we're going to be crowning a champion.
You're absolutely right. Now, today's matches will all be for the winners bracket. So everyone who's playing today is still playing their very first match. And then starting next week, we're going to do losers bracket. So next week, it's going to be the players that actually get eliminated for real, their last chance. But everyone who loses today will get a second chance.
Let's talk about our first matchup we've got here today. It's going to be Dark against MyuNgSiK. I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup. Dark is really, he's such a good player, but you know, MyuNgSiK, and especially the way that Protoss is being played right now, he might have a hard time.
Yeah, he really may. Let's see how Dark is going to do today, because I feel like Dark was a big up-and-coming Zerg throughout the middle part of last year. Everyone was saying he was really good, but he eventually never really won a tournament. He never actually had a big chunk of success, whereas MyuNgSiK was kind of the opposite. He struggled through most of last year, but at the end of the year, he was making every GSL could. As you can see, he's got quite a few results, you know, up under his sleeve, making it to the round of 8 of several tournaments, including Star League last year. So a really strong Protoss. Did insanely well in the preseason as well. So this guy, do not underestimate him.
It is going to be a best of 3, which can be pretty unforgiving. We've already seen some upsets so far, especially in day 1 of the SSL. So, I mean, expect anything. You can do, you know, 1 cheese and then play 1 standard game, and if you pull them both off, you're out of the group.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we're going to jump into a player interview here, guys. We'll take a look at this. Here we go.
다른 저거들보다 좀 운영가면 잘하고 컨트롤도 잘하는 팬분들이 저한테 운영의 완전체라고 많이 하시더라고요. 저는 되게 그 얘기를 듣고 만족도 많이 하고 기분도 되게 좋았던 것 같아요.
프로토스 김명식이라고 합니다. 제가 군단의 심장 때 약간 없지 않아 빌드빨로 게임을 한 경향이 있기 때문에 연습을 해서 더 다양한 모습을 보여드리고 싶어요.
뭐 날빌만 할 줄 알고 운영은 못하는?
제가 여태까지 보여드린 모습이 그러니까 그런 말을 하시는 것 같아서 좀 더 다양한 모습, 강한 모습 보여드리는 게 정답인 것 같아요.
딱 김명식 선수가 걸려가지고 예선장에서 너무 기분이 좋더라고요. 이번에 진짜 열심히 해서 그냥 8강 가보자 라는 생각만 했어요.
상대 전적을 보면 제가 좀 밀리는 경향이 없지 않아 있어서 힘든 상대인 것 같아요.
저는 뭐 지금 김명식 선수의 날빌만 생각하고 있기 때문에 김명식 선수가 그렇게 하던 대로 하시면 제 입장에선 되게 쉬울 것 같아요. 맞게만 하면 이기는 거니까.
조중혁 선수도 약간 저를 그런 식으로 생각하셨는데 결국에는 제가 최종전에서 2대1로 이겼어요. 뭐 그렇게 생각해 주시면 심리전 하기가 더 좋아서 앞으로도 쭉 그렇게 생각해 주셨으면 좋겠어요.
하고 싶은 말은 정말 많은데 정말 그 각오를 경기력으로 보여드리겠습니다.
게이머 생활을 약간 힘들게 하고 있는데 응원해 주시는 분들이 되게 힘이 많이 돼 주셔서 감사하고 더 나은 성적으로 보답하겠습니다.
What are your thoughts on that interview, Wolf?
I mean, it was a very standard Korean pro gamer interview. I guess like for the most part, I would say Dark is really confident going into this series, and MyuNgSiK knows he's kind of known to be a bit cheesy, and that like he's not. Most people don't consider him to be like that tough of an opponent. And Dark basically said like when he saw his opponent was MyuNgSiK, it made him really happy. He was like, okay, I can do this. Let's go to the round of 8. So MyuNgSiK basically just kind of testing the waters here at the beginning of this tournament, not as confident, whereas Dark is not super confident, but he thinks that this is a good opponent for him, a good matchup for him.
As you guys have already seen, we've had plenty of upsets, and that's partially because it's a new game, but also because it's a best of 3. In a best of 5, the term I would use is downloading your opponent.
Right.
Okay? You play, and you've had this, I think everybody's had this, it's played enough StarCraft. You might play somebody 1 or 2 times, and let's say they beat you. But if you're a better player, and you were to play, 100 games, for instance, over time, you've eventually downloaded how they approach the game. You know what build orders they're using. You see their weaknesses, and you know how to exploit it. Now, in a best of 3, that's near impossible to do. So it's very important that these guys are properly prepared. In a lot of GSLs that we see, sometimes somebody loses game 1 in a best of 5, and then barely loses the next one, and then you start to see that comeback occur.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, it's all going to come down to how ready they are before the match has even started.
Exactly, and something about Star League specifically, not all tournaments are like this in Korea. In fact, some of them are like this, and sometimes it changes from season to season. Tournaments like the GSL, but the maps are done like here in the studio, so you don't know exactly which map you're going to end up playing on before you start. So you really have to have a broader sense of your idea for the matchup more than the map specifically, because you might have like an all-in prepared for, say, Dust Towers, and then Dark just bans it, and then you can't play that strategy anymore. So you have to have a pretty big set of strategies, big set of builds going to this best of 3.
And we are going to be starting this match momentarily here. A Zerg versus Protoss. Let's talk a little bit about what we've already seen here in a PvZ. The Adept oftentimes used to pressure the Zerg, and a Zerg usually has to play on the defense. I think we've seen Zergs already beginning to adapt to this. But also note that when we do see these Zergs follow this up with what is very common, the Roachling attack over at the front, and also shooting corrosive bile, at the pylons, trying to take it out. A lot of times the attacks of the Adepts completely crush. I was talking to Protoss about this yesterday. Actually, hold up, we're going right into this. This is game number 1. I'll tell you more about that after we introduce our players. In the upper right starting location in the red, we have Dark. One of our more handsome players, if I could say so myself. In the bottom left, in the blue, we have our Protoss MyuNgSiK.
There he is.
Also handsome.
Very handsome.
Love evenly distributed here at the SSL.
You were talking about this yesterday. I actually got to see those games where you're talking with Artosis about trading attacking units for an expansion, but then the weaknesses that get unlocked, when you do that, a player who loses his expansion but doesn't lose his army has an army he just killed yours, so he's going to counterattack you, so that's always something you have to keep in mind. Now, I feel like in this series, I personally want to give the edge to MyuNgSiK. I feel like his results have been more consistent as of late, going all the way to the finals of the preseason tournament. Protoss seems to be really figured out right now in this matchup. We're seeing almost every game is this Nexus into 2-gate Adept, and then there's a follow-up with 2 Stargate Phoenix, and then like 2 Robo Immortal and Archons with your extra gas. So we've seen this almost every time. So I think Protoss really know how this matchup is played. They've got it figured out to a T.
Yeah, it does seem like they have a really deep understanding of the matchup and definitely how to exploit the Adept. To what I was harping on earlier on, so we've seen these players do the Roach Ravagerling timing attack on the Protoss's third base, and to great success. However, with the Adept counterattack, because Adepts move fast, they can really punish the Zerg player. Now, what Artosis was saying yesterday, which I thought was pretty smart, was that normally when Zergs are doing a timing attack like that, what are they making behind it? They're making drones.
Yeah.
They're making as many workers as they possibly can so that they can eventually gear up for the 4th base while Protoss then reclaims the 3rd. But what Artosis said that I really liked was that, in fact, Zerg has to just keep making attacking units to then absorb the Adept counterattack. And we're going to see if that happens this time around. But already, at the start of the game, the double Adept opener. This is one of the more aggressive Adept builds we have. And we're going to see how long he will stay on Adepts versus when he switches into a more basic Tier 1 tech.
But notice he's also, I mean, he got Ling speed. He's actually going for Overlord speed here as well very early on, which is somewhat suspicious. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second.
Yeah.
But he wants to wait until he sees the Adept, and then he's going to, you know, start the Ling production. His Overlord already saw it, so he's starting 8 Lings at home. He's got 2 Lings he was hiding to actually come and scout the main base, but MyuNgSiK had his Mothership Core out there. He's actually safe. And he's sticking with just 1 Stargate, in fact, this time, not 2. We normally see players go for double Phoenix. This first Adept will get a good scout off here in the main base.
And we will see. A lot of players tend to fake out with the Adept. They just move it into the main, check the drone count, check what they're mining, if there's any tech there, and then they tend to back up. Now, the follow-up play that we've seen quite a bit of is the Stargate here, and we already see Phoenixes not even going to be banked here, but actually just sent right out.
Now this Adept is basically history, but he will actually, hold the ramp, putting a second Adept on hold position. He's got the Mothership Core out and the Nexus up. But yeah, just 1 Stargate with the Phoenixes. Now this is scouted because Dark went for such an early Overlord speed. Almost made me feel like he was going to do some sort of weird rush to like a drop strategy because drops are so much easier.
I mean, he absolutely could. I think what might be more important for what he's doing with this is just checking and seeing when the gateway explosion is happening. When you do this Adept build, guys, especially if you're Protoss, try this out. You don't have to tech. You can actually just make a bunch more gates and then do a timing, or you can switch into a Robo or a Stargate. There's so many ways to play, and Zerg are really kept in the dark. So I think getting that Overlord speed is going to guarantee, for Dark's sake, that he has a pretty good idea of what's going on. He knows how much he can drone up versus how much he has to defend, and hopefully, ideally, get that 4th base up, which Zerg seem to be having a bit of a tough time acquiring.
Sure. Now this base is going to, basically survive and easily stave off this Ling harass. But there's no probes here just yet. One thing I really like about what Zark is doing is he's checking all the time about what is going on. He's using Lings to harass, to scout. He had 2 Lings trying to scout the main base early on. He's got Overlord speed, which also protects his Overlords against Phoenix harass a little bit easier. But he hasn't checked back into what's going on because, as you were mentioning, instead of just continuing Phoenix production, you can just kind of make 1 and then explode the gateways up. He's adding 6 gateways. He's getting Adept attack speed. He's getting a Warp Prism. So it looks like he wants to follow up with a very aggressive timing attack to follow this up.
We do see that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, we do see an Evolution Chamber is on the way as well.
It is. Here's that timing attack that we have seen so much of. Will he be able to hold it? Now, note what we've seen already is some very great times, especially with the Corrosive Biles using those pylons and then also relocating the army. Protoss has been having a little bit of a tough time. They do seem to be able to recuperate. Oh, and I love this. Okay. We might even end up with possible drops as this is going under. He's going to hit 2 locations at once. So Dark really showing us how to do it. He does see the Ravagers coming out now, and I love the pickup here. Very nicely done. And that's just going to force Dark to go ahead and try to come in right now. Well-placed pylons, well-placed gateways.
Yeah, really well-placed gateways. You talk about how they hold that thought. We're actually going to have this big engage here. A bunch of probes get targeted down, but the pylon placement here is really nice. You talk about this all the time about how Corrosive Bile could just hit the pylons because they're stationary, but if they're really far back, it's a lot tougher for the Ravagers to actually get in there and hit them with that Corrosive Bile. So I like that placement. Here's the drops you were talking about. He's got Lings now in his main base. He's going to have to split his units to deal with this. Oh man, Lings are the natural.
This is so smart because Protoss can barely hold off this attack over the front. He's actually going for the Nexus right now. The Zealots and the Adepts are coming up, and he does take that Nexus out. Meanwhile, back in the main and the second base here in the back, he might be able to, well, I don't know if he's going to get the Nexus, but he's definitely going to get a lot of probes back here as well.
This is nearly fatal damage. I mean, he's not mining. He lost the Nexus already, and he even keeps overcharging here, but he has no money to do a counterattack. He needs to get his probes back mining. Back at home, there's spores going up. He's got a lair. He's getting his +1. And the Protoss is still at home defending right now, so a counterattack isn't really even on MyuNgSiK's mind.
You saw for a minute there he wasn't even mining, period.
Yeah.
All the probes are on the run. Note the Lings do poke in to force it, cancel on the Nexus. Of course, the Nexus was not made, so he didn't have to do that, but great play there by Dark. Now, let's not forget, we have seen this many times before. The Adept and Phoenix counterattack that can be a bit of an issue. Was Dark too greedy? I did see him making roaches and lings here. Oh, this is great to do a counterattack in a moment like this. Yeah. But he is walled in, so he will just try to do a sandwich right now, catching everything at once.
Now, he also has a bunch of queens and spore crawlers set up at home as well to help deal with those phoenixes. He's making a ton of queens right now. He's got 3 more on the way. He's going to actually go up to a total of 9. He's banked up a lot of transfuse energy already. He's going to have a Hydralisk Den, a ton more Ravagers here. I think he should be able to shut this attack down. Let's see what these Adepts can get done, though. They're a very powerful unit, Tasteless.
He is committed. We do see the Roaches coming down right now. Probably have some Corrosive Bile shot over there as well. Warpins with the Adepts. Does Dark have enough?
Here comes the attack now in this natural as well. The Adepts just teleporting, shading across the bases here, trying to get as many drones as he can. He's actually already gotten 18, 20 drones here, 21. But, you know, this is going to become an expensive attack. The Protoss is going to probably lose the majority of these units, but he's just outmaneuvering the Roaches at every turn. Now, this is an interesting situation because this is similar to what you were talking about. The Zerg is now going to be the counterattacking one after his economy is gutted here. He's down to 36 drones. He's lost 25. But once he kills these Adepts, he's just going to walk across the map. And let's see if MyuNgSiK can hold that.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue. I don't believe he remade the Nexus, just judging from the mini-map here. So he might be able to hold it at his ramp. Finally, the Adepts... No, excuse me, what am I talking about? These are Adepts. I was going to say, finally the Adepts have been held off, but no. They ghosted somewhere else. Okay, now he's actually held it. And now he will attempt to do the counterattack.
Yeah, I feel like he needs to go now. Just let these Phoenixes go. And leave the Queens and the Spores to deal with those, but rush that counterattack across. The Mothership Core has enough for several overcharges here. Actually, only got 89 energy, not as much as I thought, but he will be able to drop down a few of those overcharges. But he literally has 6 Phoenixes and 4 Adepts on the map versus 24 Roaches and 4 Ravagers. This is going to be a nearly impossible hold. Like, people will write songs about MyuNgSiK if he holds this attack. I don't think it's going to happen.
They will sing songs of him in the Tavern Wolf if he does hold this attack. You know, I gotta say, we saw a brief shot there of MyuNgSiK's face in the booth. He was shaking his head. I mean, this is a pretty tough position. He's gonna lose these gateways here on the low ground. He's actually gonna be supply blocked, by the way, if he loses these pylons. So this is a pretty big problem. Yes, the Phoenixes are doing a good job with the pickups here. However, a third base in Protoss's future, I don't see that occurring. Smart move here by Dark, by the way. He eventually decides he doesn't want to overextend, sends 2 Roaches back here just to make sure if a probe is sent out, he can shoot that down, or at least buy some time. Yeah, and now Dark is going to have to try to reassemble what he's got. It is, let me see here. Okay, so we do have a somewhat even worker lead, but of course in Legacy of the Void, you do mine out the main a lot quicker since you obviously start with more workers. So it is going to be a bit of an issue if MyuNgSiK can't get this third up and running.
And that's going to be the next challenge for MyuNgSiK, especially because Dark is now set up. You know, he's getting Hydralisk. He's got a Lurker Den on the way. He will have Lurkers set up soon to deny this third base again. He can also use them to keep his own 4th base up. He got his economy back up to snuff. Like you said, having a similar worker count to your opponent doesn't mean anything if you don't have a 3rd Nexus. Now we are going to see MyuNgSiK try to harass here a little bit. He's going to lose this Phoenix. Oh, barely survives. The Phoenix is trying to scout, you know, a little bit ahead here is to try to find a weak point, but there's Queens everywhere. There's 7 Queens on the map. So many Spore Crawlers as well. Finding damage here is going to be tough.
We are seeing Protoss tech up to Psionic Storm. Will this allow him to have a 3rd base? I'm not entirely sure. Zerg, right around when they get to about 140 supply, they're going to max out pretty quickly. I think it would behoove Zerg to actually just do another timing attack there on the 3rd base. We'll see if that's going to be the case here. We do have Hydras coming up. He could hit a timing here where he could attack him before Psionic Storm finishes, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't seem.
I don't
like
know if he's going to do it, but yeah, I don't know if he's going to do it, especially with this Warp Prism pestering him. But it's definitely an option. And of course, the comical distance that a Warp Prism can pick up an Adept here, that's tough for Zerg, man.
Yeah, it's really nasty.
Although I do like the mechanic, because I always think any kind of harass with a, whatever it is, a shuttle or a dropship, is always going to enhance the game. But that's really tough for Zerg. I mean, you can pretty much keep away from the Hydras, unless you have, you've way overdone the defense there. So good job with him, just keeping the Zerg busy, but Zerg is going to gear up for that counterattack.
Yeah, it looks like he's actually mostly going to be going with pure Hydra. He has 6
Storm
Lurkers.
Storm got done. Yeah, it is done. Okay. So, I think he had 5 Templars back there. Let's see if he can hold this.
Yeah, he's got 5 Templars, just like you said. This is a mostly Hydralist army. There are a few Immortals here, as well as 1 full energy Sentry. So, That sentry is going to be, it needs to get some good forces here. Here come the lurkers up at the front. He's spreading them nicely so the storms won't do as much AoE.
He might want to try corrosive. Oh, no, excuse me. What am I talking about? He doesn't have ravages. These are lurkers coming in here. I was going to say, you might want to try to gun that down with some corrosive bile, but getting the lurkers out here, this is going to be pretty tough. Now, when you're attacking in here with lurkers, you got to be very, very careful, because if they're clumped together too much, the storm is going to cause a serious problem.
Yeah, I mean, it was like that even in Starcraft 1.
Yeah.
And notice Dark is trying to target down the High Templar with his roaches, because they can tank a little bit more storms, but he's not really having much success. Now, baiting the Protoss army back into the lurker fire, that's where he's going to get the serious hits, and he's just whittling MyuNgSiK's army down to shreds here. And I think this is actually going to be the end of this game.
Yep, there it is. GG. Game number 1 goes to Dark. I love how he played the game there. We've seen that time and attack over at the third base. We've actually seen, I would say, a surprising number of Protosses lose that third base. A lot of them still recover in the game, but it's definitely been, considering that we're starting to see the bones of the meta form here. Yeah. In Legacy, we've seen a lot of Protosses not hold that, but really having that Ling drop in the other 2 bases showed just how overstretched the Protoss is in that scenario. So that's definitely something you Zerg players can take home here, is incorporating drops like that to really exploit Protoss being a bit too greedy in a game.
Yeah, that was absolutely the crux of that game, was the Ling drops into not only the main base, but the third base. The Overlord's speed that he used to get them there faster was really cool, but it also allowed him to scout, to know that he wasn't really up against a heavy Phoenix build, so there weren't going to be as many Phoenixes to actually shut down his drop. There weren't Phoenixes around now.